We're live. I call to order the July 22nd, 2024 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Would the secretary please take roll for this evening?
Commissioner Danilevich.
Here.
Commissioner Pluger, absent. Commissioner Hankins.
Here.
Commissioner Holmes.
Here.
Commissioner Stanton.
Here.
Commissioner Klinger is here.
And we have a quorum. Everyone should have received a copy of the minutes from the June 24th, 2024 meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and that's passed. Item 4, any communications?
Yes, I just want to remind everybody, we do still have a vacancy on our Planning and Zoning Commission. So I encourage everybody to let your friends and family and associates and anybody who may be interested know that they can apply. Our application form is online, or they can reach out to me directly for information about applying. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so next up on the agenda, are we going to discuss both of these together?
Yes.
Okay. So we have ordinance number 4124, special use permit for a public utility for a community solar facility, and ordinance number 4224, variance from the minimum lot frontage requirements in the single family residential. May we have staff report, please?
Yes, thank you. Both agenda items 5 and 6 are regarding a proposed community solar project, which would be accessed off Swanson Road, east of Interstate 90. This land is actually zoned single-family residential, and it was changed to single-family zoning with an expectation of this area being developed as a residential neighborhood prior to when the housing market bubble burst in 2008. Community solar installations, like what is proposed, are considered a public utility, and public utilities do need a special use permit before we can allow them in the single-family R1 zoning district. This particular parcel where the applicant would like to build these ground-mounted solar panels is landlocked farmland now with a bit of wooded floodplain along the south side. The parcel itself is over 36 acres in size, but the solar installation would only take up approximately 14 acres of that area. South and east of this parcel is industrial zoning. It actually abuts the northern extent of where the Park 90 industrial subdivision is planned to ultimately extend to. And staff feels that having a solar installation here, kind of buffering the industrial area from a future residential area, is an ideal use in this location. Solar installations are pretty innocuous land use. They don't generate traffic, odors, or noise. And this may spur more activity in the village on that opposite side of I-90, which is the direction we're focused on growing. So staff does recommend approval of the special use permit with 8 recommended conditions, just to make sure that the site is developed as proposed. The solar panels do need to be enclosed by a 6 to 8 foot tall fence. Access to the site shall be off of Swanson Road. Signage at the site shall be regulated. The floodplain area shall be undisturbed. And if the panels are not generating electricity for a 12-month span, the site will then need to be decommissioned and restored. And as I mentioned, this is a landlocked parcel. That means that the property does not have the required 60 feet of road frontage to make it a conforming R1 zoned property. This is why the variance is being sought. The site is planned to be accessed by a 12-foot wide access drive off of Swanson Road that would run inside the eastern boundary of that lot immediately to the north, which is owned by the same parties that own the lot where the solar panels would be located. So logistically, when it comes to getting to the property, there's no issue. The variance is only needed before the village can issue any building permits for the community solar facility, because we can't issue permits for improvements on non-conforming properties. So staff does recommend approval of the variance to allow this property to have 0 feet of lot frontage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present? Please approach the podium and be sworn in, please.
Why don't we have you both raise your right hands? You solemnly swear, right hand, solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Oh, okay.
It's the other right. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Take one of you go first, but name and address for the record, please.
Myself, Utkarsh Gupta, and I'm from Chicago.
Sean Hickey, my office is at 570 Lake Cook Road in Deerfield.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
from Kimley Horn.
Is there anything additional you'd like to add to the staff report?
Nothing as of now.
Okay. Nothing additional? Okay, you guys may be seated. Um, Oh, was there any other questions from the board?
Sorry,
Oh.
we have a presentation prepared, but if you guys are ready, if you're gonna follow staff recommendation, that's fine.
Well, we don't know if we're gonna
Yeah.
follow
Yeah,
this
let's see.
recommendation until we have our hearing, and there are other people here that want to
Yeah.
speak.
Okay.
So you might want to go through at least some level of your presentation.
Okay, sorry.
Sure. Um,
We have a PowerPoint.
Yeah, so myself, Utkarsh Gupta, I work as a project developer with Arena Renewables, and we are here to present our community scale solar project, and we are seeking special use permit for our project. And just to give you an overview of the company, it's a year-old company. We have 13 people working, and even though it's a new company, we are like in terms of the experience, we have a lot of. I mean, our leadership is from Cypress Creek, which is still one of the biggest utility scale developers in US. So they used to work for distributed generation projects earlier, and now their leadership team is what made this company. And we recently raised $20 million as well. So we have a lot of financing and everything in place. We are a stable company. And so from the Illinois team, myself, who work as a project developer, we have Carson, who is director of development, and our chief development officer is Jeff, and Matt is our chief executive officer. And with respect to the pipeline we have 30 sites signed up already, which are in various different stages of development in Illinois, specifically working on community scale solar projects, and totaling about 190 megawatt under development across Illinois, and cumulative 300 plus megawatts. And we are in about like 5 to 6 states in US where we are working on community scale solar projects. And we are very excited to partner with you with the village of Machesney Park for this community scale solar project. We can move to the next slide. So this is just to give an overview of the project, just what Kerry mentioned earlier. So our project is called Harlow Solar Project. The address is Swanson Road, Roscoe. It's a 2.4 megawatt AC project. We are approximately using 14 acres for this project. Zoning is R1, and we have site control with the landowner. We have a secured option to purchase agreement, and our interconnection agreement is also secured with Comet. So in terms of the community benefits for this project, there are 3 different layers. If you look at from the environmental perspective, this project is going to help us produce 6.1 million units of clean energy, which will be produced each year. And this is basically equivalent to greenhouse gas emissions, from 1,000 gasoline vehicles driven for 1 year, and approximately 10.9 million miles driven by gasoline vehicle. And this is equivalent to carbon sequestered by 4,975 acres of US forest in 1 year, 70,000, and equivalent to planting 70,000 new tree plantings. So from the environmental perspective, there are a lot of advantages of putting community scale solar project. And now coming to the community benefits. So the way it works is that for the solar projects, there are separate electricity users just like us who can subscribe to this project and take advantage of the subsidized electricity. Usually the users get 10% discount on the electricity pricing. And so community solar in general, if we talk about the concept, the community word is there because the people who are not able to take advantage of the solar electricity because they don't have the roof, they don't have the let's say the capacity to have rooftop solar, they can take advantage of these community scale solar projects through this program. So we work with companies, the entities which are called aggregators. So once the project is connected to the grid, we'll have aggregators have subscribers here, people like us who have homes and who are going to use electricity, and they can subscribe to this community scale solar and get subsidized electricity, basically. And the third is the tax benefit. The town is going to receive 106 grand over 25 years, and all the revenue is accretive, means that it's not going to put additional strain on the other services like traffic, school, police, water, and sewer. And all the taxes has been calculated based on the Illinois Department of Revenue methodologies. So based on those calculations, this is the rough approximation of how much taxes the town is going to receive over the next 25 years. So now coming to decommissioning, so basically giving a brief overview like what decommissioning entails. It's mostly like after the project life cycle ends, which is at the end of the 40th year. Decommissioning efforts will be put in place. So our company would be responsible for uprooting the entire solar power plant after it's reaches the end of the project life cycle. So it mostly involves removing the solar panels, removing concrete equipment pads, pull racking posts, fences, disassemble all the wiring conduits, inverters, excavate access road, and doing site restoration, which involves soil decompacting, excavations filled with soil, and resetting distributed areas. And in terms of the decommissioning surety, we'll record a decommissioning bond with the county, and the value will be determined by the third-party engineer. And this is always the decommissioning value is always appraised every 5 years by an engineer to factor in the dollar depreciation and the inflation cost of the future, since things will be more expensive to decommission at the 40th year. So we'll do that. An estimated value as of today is approximately 40,000 per megawatt DC in year one, which will increase over time once the appraisal happens. And I'll let Sean add on a few things if he wants to for the decommissioning plan.
Yeah, this is pretty standard. So my name is Sean Hickey. I'm a civil engineer by trade, and I work on acquiring special use permits for community scale solar sites all over the state of Illinois. This is all in line with what's called an agricultural impact mitigation agreement. So Arena and Harlow Solar specifically need to enter into an agreement with the Illinois Department of Agriculture, and that's called an AMA. So they are held to the standards within this to do it the right way through the Illinois Department of Agriculture. Every project has to do it before we can even get to stand here in front of you. There's a signed contract that all of this is in line with the state standard. So one of the other benefits of this is the pollinator-friendly vegetation that we used. So row crops typically have a lot of runoff. Their root systems are very, very shallow, and there's also a lot of exposed dirt. We will actually put what's called pollinator mixes underneath the panels, and those will go through 30 to 40 grow and then death cycles, and those will rejuvenate the soil with fresh nutrients. And also you can see here from this depiction that the root systems of these plants are a lot deeper and more substantial than row crops, so they will lead to increased infiltration. We anticipate a net runoff reduction from proposed to existing to proposed conditions. So it should be an improvement upon the stormwater runoff in the area.
This is just a visual representation. So we're gonna target what we see on the right side. So that's what the pollinator friendly, grasses and all those plants look like. So just wanted to show a visual representation. What we see on the right side is what we can achieve. And this is just, showing you how the native grasses look like during the drought versus, so left side is basically, things not accomplished well enough. I mean, things are not that good. And on the right side is what looks like a good site, which has pollinator-friendly vegetation. Again, so this is kind of sums up our presentation. We'll go through our site plan in more detail in the next slide. But yeah, should anyone have any questions, they can approach me with any questions, and I'll be very happy to answer any of the questions related to the project.
I can run through the site plan before we do that. I might get ahead of some of them. Do you mind if I approach? Is that okay?
Go ahead.
So this site is tucked away on the south end of this parcel. There will be a ridge kind of right here where the drainage will go north and the drainage will go south. We have already talked to Winnebago County Highway Department, and we will be connecting into Swanson Road. We've talked about their concerns. We provided a site distance exhibit to prove that the site is feasible and safe at that design speed. And we also have experience getting projects permitted and built within Winnebago County, adhering to you guys' stormwater ordinance. So this will have, even though we will reduce the runoff from a precondition to a postcondition, we also are still being held to the Winnebago County Stormwater Ordinance, which has a release rate requirement. I don't want to get too technical, but we recognize that we will be held to this standard. I believe this is a great spot for this site. We are 2,000 feet plus south of Swanson Road. There is also a hill with a crest in the middle that is about at elevation 920. The highest panels are around 875. So the panels are 50 feet below the top of this hill. It will be very hard to see it from anywhere north of the site. And then down here, we are staying out of the floodplain, and we are not impacting any floodplain, floodway, or wetlands as a part of this site. We have specifically designed it to not do that. So we will have a asphalt access road that runs total length about a half mile. And then we'll have a small access gate right here that will be locked, other than when emergency responders. When the site is built, we will coordinate with emergency responders, make sure they know how to access the site. There usually is what's called a Knox box, which they have a key to, they would be able to access in case of any emergency. Emergencies are incredibly rare, extremely rare, but you need to prepare for all contingencies. There will be one equipment pad that will be used to invert the electricity, allow it to be connected into the grid at the far north end of the site where we are connecting into existing ComEd poles. We are showing drainage swales, that's what these blue arrows are, conveying the flow to the proposed detention basins to be in line with Winnebago County stormwater ordinance.
And I would like to add a few things. So from the site characteristics standpoint, this is a very low impact site from the perspective of like, we are not doing any tree clearing. There's no, no impact on wetlands, no steep slopes will be disturbed, and no impact on the floodplains. So, and also, if you look at the site, I mean, there are no neighbors near the vicinity of the project site, right? So it's like probably like 3,000 feet on the northern side from this Swanson Road. We see that, it's approximately 1,200 feet from the I-90 on the west. On the eastern side also, it's like close to like 3,000 feet before any structures comes up. So from that site characteristic standpoint, this is a pretty good site. It's not gonna impact anybody's life per se. So yeah, a pretty good facility, and hopefully we'll get SUP for this site. Really looking forward to working with you guys. That's it.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Yeah, and I may have missed it. If I did, I apologize. Is this a purchase of the current owner, or is it a leasehold
It's a purchase.
purchase?
Yeah, the total property size is 36 acres. And we're talking about a 14-acre solar farm. What happens to the other 22 acres?
It will continue to be farmed.
Yeah, it's up to the landowner what they want to do. We are just going to use 14 acres for our solar power plant.
And that's the residential at the north and the west.
It's zone single family, but
Single
it's
family.
being used for agriculture.
I'm also a little curious about the access. Our packet says the site would be accessed via an easement through the property to the north, which is under the same ownership as the subject property. Technically speaking, you can't hold an easement against yourself. You don't need an easement to access your own property. If this property were ever separated, you would need an easement.
Well, they're buying
There
it from
will
the
be.
farmer. The
Yeah.
farmer owns the land to the north. They're not buying, they're only buying
They're buying
portions
this
to the
chunk.
south. They'll have to have an easement through the person they're buying it from to get to that property.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Good question.
One quick question, just for clarification. You're talking about a 40-year lifespan on the solar panels, but in the packet and everything, it looked like only a 25-year plan
Yeah,
right now.
That's typical design, but they typically can last as long as 40 years. So that it's more of a 15-year range. 25 is kind of the warranty. So they often last longer than that, and they're built to last. So like they're built to be out there, they have shatterproof glass, kind of the same stuff that's like your windshield. They are heavily encased in aluminum and steel to make sure that there's limited interaction with the outside environment, i.e. there's very little contamination from these. There's no contamination from these. So they are built to last, and that's the 25-year warranty on most panels, and that can extend functionally.
Okay.
The access road is 12-foot wide,
Yes,
paved.
yes.
How much access did you purchase? Because I think the code says 20 foot,
20-foot pavement.
20 foot hard surface.
We can update that. It's
But,
part of the condition.
Gary is.
but again, we can check into
There's-
it.
There's nothing in our code about,
2015 should say fire access road or
oh,
emergency access.
okay, I was thinking zoning code.
Yeah, so again,
We'll look at it.
but yeah, very little risk.
That is something that we were willing to update kind of based on feedback. I do these permits all over the state, and often they're like, the fire truck is 20 feet wide, you need to expand to that. So I deal with that type of modification as part of these conversations all the time.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicants? Okay, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Okay, so there are some other comments from the public. So I'll call you guys up and then approach the podium to be sworn in. And Andrew Wade. Am I reading that right? No comment at all? Okay.
Thank you.
Georgina Burbat?
Georgia Boobert.
Oh, sorry about that.
Mrs.
No,
Booth,
that's okay.
could you do me a favor?
Oh,
Raise your right
Of
hand.
course,
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
yes, I do.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Georgia Boobert. I live at 8011 Swanson Road in Roscoe.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm going to have to read because I'm no good at this kind of thing. I was told that what I want to say is not relevant, too long, and no one really cares. But I think who better to talk to than the people, the concerned citizens that show up to take the time to show up to a public meeting like this. So if you don't mind, I'll just read my way through this. Our family owns and works most of the farmland east and north of the parcels in question, bordered to the north by Belvedere Road. More relevantly, my husband and I own the land across I-90, down creek, to the west of the hazard parcels. If you look at the map on page 46, you can see the eastern sliver of those parcels. Well, you can see that on this map. The Booberts have farmed here for 95 years, and my husband knows more about this land than anybody. We are adamantly opposed to the use of this property as a solar farm for many, many reasons. First, let me acknowledge that the property is zoned residential, but it has been used as farmland forever. It's been an orchard, a cattle pasture, part of a turkey farm before it was planted in corn and soybeans. Now, I see this from a true conservationist view. And I submit to you, even though it's zoned residential, that the best use for this property is farmland. When we first talked about this project with Ms. Houston, who was very professional and helpful, she told us that it does not behoove the village to have any farmland on the books. I was stunned because she acted as if farmland was a dirty word. Now, it's got to be the difference in the property taxes, I said to myself. But then I remembered the village has no real estate taxes. So the difference money-wise to the village itself between farmland and homes and non-retail commercial property is non-existent. So why would the village agree to let this potentially toxic project take farmland out of commission? Cui bono? Who benefits? Now I'm going to get on my soapbox. Only 2% of the US population are farmers. So the general public is not aware of the issues facing agriculture. And why would they be? Except we're all humans and we all eat. There is a concerted effort in this country to take farmland out of production. Death by 1,000 cuts to your food supply, I call it. In California, the powers that be have cut off the reservoir irrigation to farmers who grow 75% of our produce. In Idaho this year, after potato farmers had planted their crop, the water authorities just turned off their irrigation water, even though there was plenty of rain. In Kansas, wheat fields, the powers that be, all of a sudden, after planting, threatened fines for anyone pumping irrigation out of the water table. Multi-million-dollar livestock infrastructure built up around food processing plants that have been closed or destroyed are now useless. The Federal Bureau of Land Management has started leasing federal grasslands to environmental activists instead of to the ranchers whose families have held these grazing leases for generations. So there goes your holiday steak.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure we're on topic with
Yes,
this.
We are. When farmers are put in these go-broke situations, they're forced to sell their land to massive investment companies, billionaires, foreign governments, and to renewable energy speculators because the average farmer just can't compete with the prices these entities are willing to pay. That farmland is now out of the hands of the producers that grow your food. Now comes renewable energy. The footprint of the wind turbine, the rebar, the cement, the cabling, the roads permanently destroys the farmland underneath it. Not to mention it makes rural life miserable. But I feel the same about these ground-based solar arrays on farmland. There are government-subsidized glass scabs upon the earth. Just another of the 1,000 cuts taking our farmland and contributing to the death of our food supply. ComEd tells me there are hundreds of these community solar farms in Illinois alone on farmland. 14 acres here, 20 acres there, 2,000 acres if they can get away with it. Yet the simple fact remains we all need to eat. You complain now that food is expensive, wait until there's none left to buy. So that's the end of my soapbox. I'd like for you to remember to keep all that in mind when you make your decision about best use. But now get your pencils ready because I'm going to talk about specifically this project. I'd like to go through a few of the bullet points in the project benefits in the application. On page 7, on energy savings, the applicant claims the project will have a 25-year useful life, or 40 years now, I guess. With the exponential advances in technology today, with the nuclear small modular reactors, hydrogen fuel, and improving solar cells, this solar array will be obsolete long before then. I believe you should use a much smaller useful life when calculating the cost benefit. The applicant says the project will produce enough energy for 600 homes. The Google tells me the village has over 8,800 households, but you know most of the energy needed is used in retail and commercial buildings. So 600 homes, in the grand scheme of things, is a drop in the bucket. And you realize, of course, that the physical energy will not be sent to village homes. The interconnection will be north on Swanson, where the lines go to Roscoe homes. So there's probably no specific benefit to village citizens. The applicant said the project will drive over 1.65 million in energy savings to ComEd customers via discounts in their monthly bills. You realize, of course, that these savings won't go necessarily to village homes, but to any ComEd homeowner they can convince to subscribe to their supply. They could have door-to-door sales first in Chicago, for all we know. Besides, 1.65 million divided by 600 homes over 25 years is $100 per household per year, maybe. I personally am not impressed. They tell you that there will be tax revenue, $6,000 a year in real estate taxes, and I say, so what? Of course, the village has no real estate tax, so that there is no direct benefit to Machesney Park. In fact, studies show property values nearby can drop as much as 4 to 5.8%. The 5,500 additional taxes on that parcel, or the taxes equivalent to one moderate-sized home, will more than be offset by the reduction of local taxes to the community collected on the devalued nearby property. So no benefit there to you. Now, the environmental section, they claim to have clean energy equal to 10 million miles of cars driven. Although at some level, this seems like a silly comparison because they're not taking cars off the road, they're taking food off the table. Let's talk in emissions lingo instead of keep it simple, stupid lingo. After a little calculation, EPA.gov tells us that a car driving the 10,000 miles per year, in their example, emits 4 metric tons of carbon. That's how they measure the emissions in metric tons. Multiply that times 1,000 cars in their example, and they're saying that their clean energy is equal to 4,000 metric tons of carbon saved per year. Now, a dirty little secret they don't tell you about is that farmland, is that 1 acre of that farmland making 200 bushels of corn scrubs 870 metric tons per year out of the atmosphere. They are taking 40 acres out of production. So that 40 acres would absorb 34,800 metric tons of carbon. So they're saving 4,000. That cornfield is saving 34,000. I say my 40 acres of corn is going to save a lot more. It's more environmentally friendly than their solar farm. Okay. So using their measure. Now, of course, it's not that simple. That corn eventually releases some of that carbon back into the atmosphere because that's the way nature works. We need carbon. So we should look at net carbon instead of gross. But we have to look at net carbon for the project also to make a comparison. Now, I'm no expert, but as far as I can tell, the panels are comprised mostly of silicon and glass framed in aluminum with a magic combo of heavy metals inside that make the electricity. Silicon and glass are manufactured from sand at extremely high heat, also known as energy. The sand and heavy metals need to be mined. Mining is done with diesel-powered heavy equipment. Carbon tons emitted. Each finished panel, just the panel, weighs 85 pounds. With 7,400 panels, we're talking at least 315 tons of raw material. So the raw materials weighing at least 315 tons need to be transported to China. Okay. Carbon tons emitted. Yes, it says right on the spec sheet they're made in China. China has 8,800 coal power energy plants, and they're building more every day. The US has about 200 because they're shutting them down. So China is burning dirty coal to make these solar panels so we can feel better about going green. Carbon tons emitted. Now the panels, 350 tons just for the panels, have to be transported from China to Machesney Park. Add the mining, manufacturing, and transport of the inverters, which are made in Thailand or India by another Chinese company. You add the racks and the posts, the diesel-powered heavy equipment to install the array, the poles, and paving at quarter-mile road. For crying out loud, the cars driven by the door-to-door salesman selling the subscriptions, the airline trips of the developers. Who knows what the net carbon savings really is on this solar project? And the answer is probably nobody, because the government doesn't dish out grants to study the facts of the downside, despite the fact that all of these billions of US dollars through 30% tax credits are being spent overseas. But I'm pretty sure it's way less than that 4,000 metric tons they're saving. So solar energy on farmland is bad for the environment, my opinion. Project components.
Did you have much more? We're
Yes.
kind of at a time limit here.
I know. Okay. I'm just going to say that property had a history of trespassers. So let's give them a paved rough road. My main concern as a hill farmer, as a landowner, as a conservation-minded person, is the drainage here. The project will be built as he said, on a very steep hill, just feet uphill from a floodplain and wetlands. Because of this minimal buffer, and you can see it, the applicant states the project is not on a floodplain. And to me, that's sort of sneaky. If you read page 46, well, you can see the map. So see all those little triangles on that map are drainage problems. So there's already drainage problems there. The farmer, well, we won't get into that. Let's see, like he said, that borrow pit is the top of that hill. And now visualize that 245,000 square feet of tilted glass sluicing water downhill. Okay, it will produce a flood, similar to, say, raining gushing down a tilted paved Meyer parking lot straight from the store to the original 173. That much water is going to come down that hill every time it rains. Now, where does that water go? You can't see very well there. Those are all trees there where the blue is. And there's trees across under I-90. That water settles in that floodplain. And then it crosses under I-90 over to the Boobert property, which is mine. And then it floods the Boobert Creek, washes out the trees and debris, plugs the culverts, and washes away the soil and removes access to land parcels. So we are screwed. I mean, and I think it was dishonest of the developers to pretend this isn't an issue and to provide no remedy. As far as I'm concerned, that alone is grounds for denying the application. Again, my opinion. Let's get that. And decommissioning. Where do these obsolete non-biodegradable panels go at the end of 20 years anyway, or 40?
That would definitely be off topic for today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because what we're looking for right now is we have a piece of property that somebody is asking, is it an acceptable use to put solar panels on? And that's what the commission is looking at right now. We understand that there's a lot of argument against it, and there's some pros for it, but we're just looking at, is it an acceptable use for that property? So the decommissioning would definitely be off topic right now.
Well, if the best use destroys the water table, I mean, we're not looking at the best use then. We're just looking at their requested use.
Much like we don't request to know what you want to do with your fields at any given time. Is an acceptable use of that property? That's what's been decided upon.
Okay. Okay. Well, in the end, I see no benefit to the park. There's flood damage to my neighboring party, no energy or monetary benefit to the village, questionable net carbon value, loss of nearby property value, eventual leakage of toxic metals, loss of precious farmland. So, sounds like a bad deal to me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your time. Also, there's a Jessica Boobert. Would you like to speak as well?
Oh, did I say one more thing? Oh.
Yeah, if you.
Maybe don't say that.
Ms. Hoover, can you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Jessica Bubert, 7955 Swanson Road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jessica Bubert, as I just said, and I own the land to the northeast of the property in question. My two beautiful daughters, my husband and I also live in the property, the house that is the closest to the east of the plan that they were talking about. I am a PhD plant scientist by training and a farmer by choice. So I spend a lot of time thinking about these things. And today, though, I'm going to put my scientist hat on, and I'd like to focus on the findings of fact that were noted in the permit application. And while the applicant obviously finds no discrepancies between their intended use and the village's special use permit requirements, I see several of those points differently, and I'd like to just walk through a few of those now. So fact 4, they states that adequate utilities and drainage will be provided. And while I see that there is a stormwater basin at the end of the access road nearest Swanson Road, if you look at picture 7, I don't know if you have the packet in front of you, but picture 7 from the Soil and Water Conservation District, in their analysis, you can see the slope going towards the north from the crest of that hill. It's a very steep slope. And while I am sure they can engineer a basin for some of that water, at the end of that slope at the driveway is a stair step down into my property, which gravity is gravity. I'm not sure how you can engineer the water away from that. So I am concerned that, we spend a lot of time and money making our drainage dishes and our drainage, our waterways so that they will deal with our stormwater runoff effectively. But if we have additional runoff from the flow on this road that doesn't make it to the west into that basin, it is going to come east and overflow our ditches, culverts, and waterways. I have the same comment, I suppose, as my mom did about moving the site north out of that floodplain, so they don't have to address that in the application. But I will just say that, I think that moving it north doesn't mitigate the potential damage of having unnatural flow into that wetland, which is obviously a fragile environment down there. Looking at fact number 2, which states that the special use won't be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity or diminish property values. While the panels themselves are on the opposite side of that hill, so you won't be able to see them, the addition of, I think it was 5 or 6 utility poles, you can see them marked on the map if you were zoomed in, at the northern end of that access road, right along Swanson Road, in order to bring that up out of the underground and into the poles, above ground poles on Swanson Road. Those poles would certainly be detrimental to how we enjoy the property now, but as an R1 zoned area, I can't imagine that any potential purchaser of a plot on the north half of that development would be interested in looking at those poles all the time. So the combination of those poles, possible visual pollution and sound reflection, and maybe heat from the panels would decrease the property values for the intended residential lots in that zoned area, and also in any potential lots that are added on the other side of the highway or in the pieces next door. And like my mom said, there were peer-reviewed articles in Energy Policy from 2021 and 2023 that showed that property values within a half a mile of a solar farm do decrease by up to 5.8%. There's also the real possibility that if this does go to a residential place, or a residential subdivision, that the residential lots abutting the facility would not sell at all because people wouldn't want to live right next to a solar facility. I guess we got a copy of through a records request, the application, and in the copy I got, there was a lease agreement for those acres, not a purchase agreement. So I'm operating under the impression that they are leasing this land, and that the landowner has the ability to go up to the actual farm with their farming operation, and I suppose a platted subdivision if that was the case. So I might want to ask more questions about that because that is in the application, that lease, unless it's changed in the last 2 weeks. As a point of interest, we would also be curious, it is our recollection from the original platting of that subdivision back in 2008 or whenever it was, that the plots went right up to the eastern property there. And so if you take this 20-foot, 12-foot, 20-foot easement out, are you going to have enough space in those plots? If we remember correctly, they were 1/4 acre, so they probably wouldn't be big enough to put a single family home. So the entire neighborhood would have to be redesigned around this new footprint. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then in response to fact 1, the applicants first say, they talked about it today, the pollinator-friendly vegetation. And I'll just comment that we've done pollinator plots. It does say elsewhere that they will mow or graze twice a year. And we've done pollinator plots and they require much more management than that. So I would be concerned that a twice a year sort of maintenance on that is just going to result in a weed field and maybe trees. So that doesn't seem like a sufficient amount of management to maintain a pollinator plot that would give us the outcome that they were hoping for, and would probably just turn it into weeds that would then go into the seed bank. And then finally, in terms of fact number 1, it says that they find no danger or detriment to public health or safety, but we don't hear anything about potential leaching of heavy metals and or the likelihood that the solar panels could break and glass could go into our ecosystem, either at that location or into the stream and then moving downstream. And these contaminants, there's another property we own, but there's also homes down there that are older on wells along Swanson. And then there's the Timberline Hollow subdivision off Perryville. And so they would all have to deal with the repercussions of any contamination. And then the last thing I'll just comment on while we're on the topic of this is, when we talk about no danger or detriment to public health or safety, is that a lot of these solar panels are made with PFAS, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. And I don't know if you've heard about those. They're a hot topic now. There's a lot of federal and state regulation regarding those. As an agriculturalist, we pay attention to what we put into the environment and the rules surrounding that. And so we know it's a very hot topic with legislators. And you might have heard them called forever chemicals, but I would encourage the village to ask the questions, maybe not now, because it might be for the board to think about. I thought about it in the framework of Fact 1 with the detriment to human health, but how much liability the village wants to take in putting components with PFAS, if there are any, into sort of the village water and the village space. So with that thought, I will thank you for your time and your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Is anybody else for public comment? Okay. So to open this up for discussion, we're going to do two separate motions here.
I just want to make one correction that this is an option to lease agreement instead of option to purchase. This is a lease agreement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying. Can we have a motion for ordinance number 4124, the special use permit for public utility for community solar facility and single family residential with conditions?
So moved.
And
Second.
Okay, any discussion about this topic?
I think the opposition presentation was very well done, but I personally doubt that the impact on the area is anything more than if it were developed as residential property. All of the concerns that were raised would be magnified by rooftops and driveways.
Yeah,
More votes?
that was my comment as well. What kind of, if I may, what kind of detention pond would require if it was residential? I mean, how much, is there a formula for,
Well,
or it doesn't have to because of this?
if it were developed as a residential subdivision, there would need to be engineering to.
Okay, so
There has to be a whole
Demonstrate
plan and
it's not so many per rooftops.
No.
No.
Okay.
It depends on
Depending on the area.
what the
Topography and
existing
stuff.
conditions.
All right, okay.
If there's no other discussion here, do the commissioners agree with the findings of fact?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Can we get a roll call vote, please, Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Stanton,
No.
Commissioner Holmes,
Yes,
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger, yes. Commissioner Danilowicz,
Yes. Okay, so this will go forward with a positive recommendation to the Planning and Zoning, Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting on August 5th. And then we'll now looking for a motion for ordinance number 4224 for the variance for the minimum lot frontage requirements.
So move.
second.
In a second. Okay, any discussion on this one? I get the one question I had was that it was 2,000 feet from Swanson. So that's the only thing I had. I was just wondering how far away it was. Okay, do the commissioners agree with the findings of fact?
Yes.
Yes,
And a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hankins,
yes,
Commissioner Klingers, yes. Commissioner Holmes,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanton,
Yes.
Commissioner Danilowitz.
Yes. So this one will also go forward with a positive recommendation for that August 5th meeting, and you're encouraged to attend that meeting. Okay, is there any other business to discuss? Okay. And then can I get a motion to adjourn
So moved.
in a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we are adjourned. Thank you.